Hey everybody, it's Dak here from the Ed Boys, and today we're talking about 5 things that I think you should invest in for progress on your mid-game old school RuneScape account. The line between early, mid, and end game can be fairly blurry with so much different content in the game, but overall these investments will generally be in the 5 mil to 20 mil range. I've recently uploaded a bunch of videos that feature making 100 mil GP, so the goal of this video is to hopefully point you in the right direction for how to invest your money once you start grinding some decent money makers. It'll be mostly towards preparing for bossing and general PVM gains, since that's where the better money makers in the game are. And by the way, these 5 topics are not in order of importance by any means, they're just 5 categories that I think are worth investing your GP in. First of all, we have the quest cape. Well, maybe not quite the full cape. The more quests that you complete, the better for your account, since quests will unlock a lot of items, training methods, and even access to higher level bosses. So you don't have to do every single quest in the game to make good progress, just the more the merrier. Here are the highest levels that you need to complete any quest. The highest stat here is 75 magic, and most of the buyable skills are in the 60 to 70 range. If you have 1 mil XP in any skill, that puts you at level 73 in that stat. So most of these skills require less than 1 million XP, which is not a huge investment even for the more expensive skills. Sometimes it can be sad to make all your GP just to kind of lose it on like herblore or crafting or something, but investing in your skills is very good for your account, and in the long run you are going to make the money back and more even faster than you did the first time. If you are looking for guides on how to train some of these skills instead of just being told to do it, my 1 to 99 guide playlist is linked in the description. Some of the higher level quests that I suggest you look into to unlock some good bosses include Secrets of the North for the Phantom Muspa, Beneath Cursed Sands for the Tombs of Amasket, Song of the Elves for Corrupted Gauntlet, and even Dragon Slayer 2 for access to Vorkath. Which reminds me to thank our sponsor today, OSRSbricks.com. At OSRS Bricks, you can purchase these awesome RuneScape-themed LEGO builds made from genuine LEGO bricks. You can buy some minifigures like these cool Barrows Brothers, or a full set like this sweet Jad, or even this Slayer helmet. You can go to OSRSbricks.com right now and use code THEED at checkout, that's THEED in all caps, for 5% off of your purchase, and yes, they do ship internationally. If you think these builds look as cool as I do, then be sure to head over to OSRSbricks.com and use code THEED to support this amazing product and me at the same time. Thank you to OSRS Bricks for sponsoring this video, and now back to some investing tips. This list of stats here for getting your quest cape is a very solid starting point for setting some skilling goals, but for our second point, we're going to want to take a deeper dive into construction. A high-level player-owned home can benefit your account immensely, adding tons of teleport options, a pool to heal and restore your stats, an altar to change your spellbook, even a costume room that just clears up a ton of bank space. You do need up to 83 construction, as well as a boost from the crystal saw and a spicy stew to be able to use some of the most helpful stuff, like a max pool and an ornate jewelry box, and then even higher construction for the Nexus portal and the Spirit Tree Fairy Ring combo. Honestly, even 99 construction is very convenient since the cape gives you unlimited house teleports, but 83 is where you get all of the most important stuff. Currently, 83 construction would cost you around 8 mil at the moment if you're using oak planks and doing mahogany homes. If you did send teak planks instead of oaks once you hit 50 construction, which would be better XP an hour and save you some time, it'll instead cost around 10.5 mil at the moment. That is a green cash stack that you're investing into one skill at that point, but overall it's a huge investment for the account. You're going to be using a high-level player-owned home for the rest of your account's progress. For the third investment, we're moving over to your prayer level, as well as the dexterous and arcane prayer scrolls. Prayer is a broken mechanic overall, mostly because overheads are pretty much required for most high-level bossing. Having a high prayer level is good for unlocking new prayers, but you also restore more prayer points when you drink a prayer potion or a super restore, making those potions more valuable for players with a higher prayer level. Getting at least 70 prayer and doing the King's Ransom quest to unlock piety is a massive upgrade, but I do suggest that you think about pushing up to 80 prayer. At that point, you can use Rigor and Augury, as well as equip the Elidness' Ward, which is a pretty cheap and very powerful magic shield. Plus, you do get 3 more prayer points per sip on a prayer potion or super restore compared to being at level 70 prayer. Jumping from 70 to 80 prayer would cost you about 5 mil at the moment if you use Ensouled Bloodveld heads, which are a nice combination of good prayer XP per hour, as well as not being too expensive. The dexterous and arcane prayer scrolls are also required to unlock Rigor and Augury. The arcane is just under 3 mil at the moment, which is pretty cheap, and then the dexterous is currently about 16.5 mil, which is a pretty big investment, but this prayer is huge for any future range gains that you're going to make, and range is a very powerful style against a lot of different bosses. Overall, investing in your prayer and these prayer scrolls costs a bit of money, but it is very worth it. For number 4, we're just going to continue to the other combat stats. I suggest getting 80 to 85 in each of these stats before you get heavy into bossing. You can start with lower stats, but in general, the higher you get your stats, the easier bossing is going to be. You don't need 99 in each of these stats to get started by any means. Honestly, it's actually kind of nice to be getting good XP and training towards 99 while you're bossing, making GP and leveling gains at the same time. You can see some solid examples of this in my budget money making series that I've been doing on my alt account. Training your melee stats is not as expensive as ranged and magic since you don't have to buy any ammo. The obsidian armor and an obby longsword is a very good set for getting attack, strength, and defense XP at places like the Nightmare Zone. Fighting Scurious the Rat King or just training your Slayer are also more active and viable ways to train your melee stats. For range and magic, you can invest a little bit more money to get faster XP. Like for range, you can use Chinchampas on a bunch of monsters at once, like Maniacal Monkeys, for a lot of range XP. And then magic, you can do the same thing with bursting spells from the Ancient Spellbook. These spells hit a lot of monsters at once, so you can stack up a bunch of monkeys or maybe nechrils within the Ancient Catacombs, and you get some very thick XP drops. This can be expensive for trying to get a super high magic or range level, but like I mentioned before, just getting to like 80 to 85 is a great start for bossing. For both of these levels, I would like to mention Scurious the Rat King yet again. This is an entry-level boss that provides very good XP for mid-level players, and yes, I do have a Scurious guide that is linked in the description. And a quick shout out to Slayer again. Training your Slayer is just a great way to get some combat XP as well, though it's not a bad idea to have a decent combat level when you start Slayer so that the gains aren't super slow. And finally, let's talk about a couple weapons that are worth investing in to help you get into some bossing. I'm going to be focusing on this weapon slot, not the other 10 gear slots. If you'd like me to make an updated full gear progression guide for each combat style, then click that like button right now. Different bosses are going to be weak to different attack styles, so when you decide on what weapon and gear to buy, you kind of have to pick a boss first so that you know what style to use, but I'm just going to give some general starting points for each style. First of all, the melee weapons. The Osmumten's Fang is a great investment. It is a very powerful stab weapon that costs about 11.5 mil at the moment. Ironically, that's like the most expensive item that we'll talk about here, but if it makes you feel better, I spent 250 mil on my Osmumten's Fang when I got it, and I still don't regret that. The Fang is a fairly slow weapon with a decreased max hit and an increased minimum hit, but it's also extremely accurate, which makes it very powerful at bosses like Vorkath, Bandos, Abyssal Sire, Next, the Tombs of Amascut, and more. It hits like a mega rare weapon, but it costs less than a Dexterous Prayer Scroll. Not everything is weak to stab, of course, so for a cheap and powerful slash weapon, I suggest the Abyssal Tentacle, and then for crush, you should look into the Zombie Axe, which actually has a good slash bonus as well. The Abyssal Tentacle is solid for Slayer gains, since regular Slayer monsters tend to have low defense, and the Zombie Axe can be used for a lot of solid bossing gains like the Duke Succulus, as shown in my Zombie Axe budget money-making video. Range weapons really start to take off when you get to the Bow of Farad'n. The Bofa is very close DPS to a T-Bow, and it skyrockets you into the end game, but a Bofa in full crystal armor costs nearly 200 mil at the moment, so until you get to that point, you're going to be surviving off a Dragon Crossbow and a Toxic Blowpipe. The Blowpipe is not so good against bosses with a high defense, but rather at killing off smaller, weaker monsters, like the monkeys in the Path of Meccan, or the shadows during the Akka fight in Tombs of Amascut. It's also great for speeding through some very simple Slayer tasks. The Dragon Crossbow, on the other hand, is good for killing high defense monsters that are weak to range, like Zebak or the Phantom Muspa. You can manage some high level kills with a Rune Crossbow as well, since it does use Ruby Bolts, which can hit the occasional 100, but if you use the Dragon Crossbow instead, it has slightly better stats than the Rune, and it allows you to use Dragon Ruby Bolts instead. This has the same odds of proccing for that 100 damage, but the regular non-proc max hit is higher on the Dragon Ruby Bolts. As for your magic gear, a lot of high tier weapons are very expensive, so the old reliable Trident of the Swamp is still a great mid-game option for fighting bosses with magic. I do also want to mention real quick the Occult Necklace that was recently nerfed. It still has a plus 5% magic damage boost, which is tied with the Tormented Bracelet and the fixed Elidness's Ward, and it's insanely cheap at the moment, so the Occult is still very worth. When using a regular spell just off the spellbook, having a higher magic level does not increase your max hit, only your accuracy, but with a lot of powered stabs, including the Tridents, the Sanguinesti Staff, and the Tumekken's Shadow, you're going to get a higher max hit for having a higher magic level, which kind of points us back to investing your money in your combat stats. Like I said before, to decide on a full gear setup that you want to buy and which upgrade you're going for next, you kind of have to choose a boss to kill first, so I highly suggest checking out my bossing guide playlist, which is linked in the description. Overall, there are so many different things in the game you could work on, which means there's so many different things you could spend your GP on, and hopefully this video has given you some idea on your next GE purchases. I recently finished getting 100 mil on my mobile-only account, and I'll be releasing episode 1 of the next series for that account soon, so if you're interested to see the investments that I make on an account with 100 mil cash, then keep your eyes out for the next mobile-only episode. If you have any questions, be sure to let me know in the comments and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. If you like this video or you just got some useful information out of it, be sure to like and subscribe for more content. Thank you for watching and best of luck on your gains.